We're moving right along. To discuss emerging, English is my first language. To discuss emerging regulated cannabis markets, we got a lineup of experts, and to lead us in the discussion, the CEO and co-founder of Zeal. Let's hear it for Arthur de Cordola. Make no noise. Everybody come on out and sit down. Bring the whole panel. Come on. Good to see you. It's quite enthusiastic.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Arthur de Cordova, and thank you for that enthusiastic introduction. We're going to jump right into it. Cannabis is now a global market operating in more than 6 continents. The emerging markets are not only the key suppliers to the larger markets here in Europe and over in Australia, they're also building their own domestic markets. The difference between success and failure is often the regulatory framework. Get the framework right, and investment will flow, as we've seen here in Germany. Today, we're joined by 5 panelists from emerging countries and regions: Thailand, Latin America, I'm going to say Dutch, and Thailand, with Arjan, Lucas from Czech, and Michelle from Jamaica. They're going to share with us their experience, perspective, and insights into operating in an emerging regulatory cannabis market. So I'm going to go right down the line and let you briefly introduce yourself, and then I'll come back to you with the first question.
Greetings, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to be here among this esteemed panel. My name is Dr. Marshall Emmanuel. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of the West Indies. I am a researcher. I engage in cannabis cultivation research, looking at sustainable practices throughout the cannabis supply chain. I've also engaged in terms of policy research work, and I have been able to bring cannabis into the academic space to build competence within the legal framework surrounding the Caribbean region, and I've engaged in terms of policy reform from the medical, sacramental perspectives.
Hello everyone, my name is Lucas. I'm from the Czech Republic, and I'm an editor-in-chief and publisher of cannabis magazine, Konopí. And I'm also activist and kind of a lobbyist, and I was helping to pass the historic law last year, which legalized 3 plants per person in the Czech Republic this January. And I'm also involved in various NGOs that focus on patient care and freeing people who are sitting behind bars for cannabis, because I think we need to think about these people as well and get them out of the prisons. So that's my work.
Hi, my name is Arjan Roskam. I'm the founder of the Greenhouse Coffee Shop Dispensaries and Greenhouse Seed Company. I'm also the founder of Strain Hunters. It's a group of documentaries we make around the world. And at the same time, we've been doing a lot of work with NGOs together with my partners that are here. For example, we changed the constitution of Congo. We helped Thailand legalize cannabis and many other countries.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mariana Larrea. I'm an international attorney. I come from pharma and life sciences. My firm represents clients in, of course, Mexico, Latam, Canada, Europe, and we help them to understand the legals and the intersection with compliance for the global and international market.
Hello, everyone. Crap first. Hello, everyone. My name is Valavit from Thailand. I'm IT engineering background. We have our cannabis farm set up 4 years ago. Now we have EU GACP and already export to European countries.
Super. This first question I'm going to ask each of you to respond. So we're here in Germany, which has undergone a rapid transformation since CanG, now on its 2-year birthday. Though not every country is following the German way. France, for instance, is taking a very different approach to its regulatory framework. Please provide a quick snapshot for our audience of your country's approach, and is there anything brewing similar to CanG that will be as transformative for your market? Mariana, ladies first.
Thank you very much. Well, Mexico has a 100% legal framework for pharma and life sciences. We started the regulation in 2017, and we have on site all the administrative procedures for this to be possible. Also, I'm representing LATAM, so there are great news that we have to share today. Brazil, from January to the date, had 3 reforms in regulations opening the medical market. And also Colombia, last year in October, for first time, they agreed to authorize pharmacies for medical flower. So there are definitely opportunities in LATAM, and I'm excited to share that with you today.
Thailand, if you follow us, we have a big announcement every 2 years. Last 4 years, we opened the country heaven for cannabis. Last 2 years, we changed. So right now, Thailand is medical cannabis only. The one who want to purchase has to have prescription. So from almost 20,000 dispensaries, went down to about 10,000 right now. Also, the farm that moved to retail business struggle and exit. For us, it's okay. Cannabis, we start with the direction to do medical cannabis only. We try to comply to all the international standards, and we do right now. So, to me, Thailand move to medical cannabis is a good direction right now.
So 2006, we start creating strain hunter documentaries to create awareness around the world to get a normalization process for cannabis in all those countries. After we went to Malawi, they legalized medical marijuana. We did Colombia, for example. We did St. Vincent and Trinidad, Jamaica. And the one we didn't do was Thailand. In 2017, Heiko, my GMP partner, got a phone call from Tister and the University of Bangkok and some politicians if we were kind to do a pitch there. I said to Heiko, because I grew up in Asia and Africa, forget it, don't even go there. And I was so wrong, because in the end we went there, we did a pitch, 2018. A lot of politicians were there, and Thailand is probably maybe the best country in the world to live. I would invite everybody to come spend a holiday there and look. So 2018, they said, okay, we're going to look at it. In 2021, they called us and they said, listen, we have the idea that we're going to legalize all. Because what we advised at that time was, as an emerging market, we said, listen, don't make the mistakes you made in Holland, in Uruguay, in Canada, and in America with overregulation, wrong laws and wrong fiscal things and everything. So in 21, they kind of legalized, but they technically legalized only for medicinal cannabis. But of course, it went a little bit recreational, as we all know. And now we're in the situation where everything is okay. Thailand is a great country. The first exports are going. And of course, it is a country in Asia where everything is new. For example, GMP doesn't exist yet in Asia. We will be the first GMP licensed place in probably July. So yeah, very much looking forward to this adventure in Thailand. And it's an emerging market. It's not an easy market like all the other countries. It has its difficulties, but great opportunities.
Lucas?
So the Czech Republic had its own CanG moment last year when we managed to pass the law legalizing 3 plants home growing for adults over 20 years of age. And apart from that, we also created a new section in the law, which actually separates cannabis from other drugs, because before the drug code just didn't differentiate between 1 kilogram of cannabis and 1 kilogram of heroin. So now we have a separate decree only for cannabis, which means that the punishments are much lower for all cannabis-related crimes. And then we also had a reform of the medical cannabis system, which has been in place in the Czech Republic since 2013. We were one of the first countries in the EU to legalize medical cannabis. But the first years were very slow because the people in the government and in the Ministry of Health didn't like medical cannabis, and they were all paid by the pharma lobby. But this eventually changed, and last year we were able to pass the new decree, which allows GPs to prescribe. And since then, the number of doctors is skyrocketing, which will eventually lead to the number of patients skyrocketing. And currently, we have around 15,000 patients and around 1,000 doctors, which is a great news because for the past 10 years, it was only around 200 doctors, and this was the biggest bottleneck in increasing the availability or accessibility of medical cannabis. And with the decriminalization, we are already seeing a huge interest from seed banks and fertilizer companies in promoting their brands and their products in the Czech Republic because they are expecting that there will be increase as it was in Germany after 2024.
Super. Michelle, a
Yes.
Kanji moment arriving in Jamaica?
Yes, the Caribbean has a very unique proposition as it makes up 14 member states, and cannabis reform policy has taken three main pillars: integrating into the global medicinal cannabis program, providing restorative justice and social equity programs, and to facilitate sacramental usage, particularly for like Rastafari. So cannabis has been legalized for religious purposes also. But it's interesting to understand, similar to the European, the EU zone, where it is 14 member states, but we have not managed to facilitate intra-regional trade and set regional standards to facilitate economic commerce. So it's important to see how we could move forward in terms of cohesive legislation towards facilitating regional integration, which could see the Caribbean as a regional trading bloc, which could provide more opportunities for international opportunities for marketing and commerce.
Is there one country leading that harmonization in the Caribbean?
Yes, well, Jamaica took the lead in 2015, so Jamaica has been 10 years since legalization, and that has saw where other countries have taken suit. So currently there are 7 other Caribbean countries which have cannabis authorities, and I'm privileged to have 2 regulators here from St. Kitts, Barbados, in the crowd today. So it's important to see how we could integrate as a region and move forward towards economic commerce in terms of international markets.
Thank you. I'm going to switch back to what both Arjan and Verve referenced earlier, that Thailand did an abrupt U-turn, and the horse was brought back into the barn. Has this impacted the investment climate? Did money flow into Thailand with the expectation that there was going to be an adult use market? And where does it stand today? And have you seen a pullback in investment because of this U-turn?
The U-turn, you can look in 2 different ways, but for me, I think it's a good direction. So Thailand will be the first mover country in Asia that go medical cannabis. For investor, you have to look at that way. We, as Cannabis, we have 3 C's that we have to achieve. The first one is comply. So we have to comply with the international standard, EU, GACP, and other countries. The second one is very important, and country, Thailand, allow us to do that, which is cost per gram. Our cost per gram now is probably the lowest in the world. More on top of that, right now we install solar system in our farm to enjoy the benefit of probably 80% of day with sunlight. And that will cut at least 50% cost of our electricity. And the last one is consistency. You all know that growing a crop for good cannabis is difficult, but it's achievable. But every crop has to be the same. That's very difficult. As I mentioned, I'm from IT background. Right now, we use AI model to make sure that daily monitoring is guided by AI and help us improve the quality. So as an investor, with your experiences, so-called smart money, I think you can help us expedite those processes. So come to Thailand, find your partner. Don't be, pushed back because of the turnaround. Thank you.
So Arjan, market still interesting with medical only?
Yeah, of course, Thailand is very interesting, like many other countries are very interesting. I don't think there's really a pullback or whatever. It was always medical. And yeah, Thailand is one of the most friendly countries with the most friendly people in the world. We all know this, no? So our Prime Minister Anutin, which we're one of his advisors, he's also in my movie, he just brought it back to where it should be a little bit more medical. Although, as we all know, I'm also a big favor of recreational use because I think both should exist next to each other. The investment climate in Thailand is great. Country is great. So I don't think much changed. You can even see it now, the announcement which was made last week by the Minister of Health was that the existing dispensaries have 3 years to convert to a medical dispensary. And medical dispensary just means that you will have a doctor in there that gives you your subscription. So it's a very easy transition. And you can compare it a little bit to the old days in California, San Francisco, that kind of thing. So yeah, nothing much changed. So I think also for the investor, nothing much changed. As my colleague here on the left side already mentioned, it's a great country to invest. It's very stable. And yeah, everything is there what should be there for a good marijuana country. And the laws are also quite straightforward and quite easy to see. And regarding the finance and the stability of the country, it's very secure.
I'm going to talk a little bit about competitive advantages. Lucas, I'm going to turn to you. You raised the question earlier that Czechia is undergoing a boom in domestic production. It's also challenging Portugal as an export or a processing hub. What gives producers and processors based in Czechia a competitive edge exporting to, say, Germany against established producers like the behemoth, Canada, or very experienced processors in Portugal?
So first of all, it's obviously the location, because Czech Republic is situated in the heart of Europe, so it's very easy to access any EU country from Prague, and Germany is our closest neighbor. We have shared border, so it's very easy to travel to Germany on daily basis or whatever. And then second, I think it's the regulatory clarity. There are laws in place, the rules are in place, and they are quite straightforward as well. And then we have Czech skilled hands, and that means not only in terms of building the facilities and maintaining them, but also in terms of growing. And I must say, I'm a registered patient myself as well. And for the past 4 years, the quality of domestic production has increased incredibly. And I think it can be compared to the best Cali wheat in the world nowadays. So I think these are huge advantages. But of course, then there's this question of competition and the workforce and the costs. But that's up to every grower and every company to do the numbers themselves and then decide if they want to set up a growing facility in the Czech Republic or not. Currently, there are about 8 domestic producers, and I know that there are more in the building. So there'll be definitely more.
I read a factoid that Czechia last year consumption was approximately 500 kg. Do you have any current numbers of what that proportion looks like, the export versus the domestic consumption?
Last year it was 450 kilograms, but that was still with the number of doctors which were around 200. So I expect the numbers will be exploding this year and next year, thanks to the exponential rise of the number of prescribing doctors. And what was the second question, sir?
Do you see that the growth of this domestic production principally going abroad or up to Germany?
Oh, yeah,
Or
of
will
course.
will the domestic market begin to?
Absorb it more.
Yes.
Well, of course, the vast majority is being exported mostly to Germany and some other countries as well. And of course, the domestic growers, they are expecting more consumption on the local market, but I think they are most focused on exports abroad. And
Right.
they are eyeing also countries like France, for example, with its upcoming medical market. So.
So Mariana, Colombia has often been cited as the ultimate low-cost producer. Great climate, agricultural history, low cost of labor, plenty of sun, and now Brazil is making moves, as you referenced. Should Lucas be hearing footsteps?
Yes, well, Colombia and America Latina, the whole region, we offer those benefits. Also, we have benefits in clinical research. We also own 33% of the arable land in the world. And these benefits, of course, position LATAM as a region emerging market, right? There are other benefits. As I mentioned, last year they just opened for medical flower, so we will see how the market react, how the farmers decide if they are going to go to the domestic market or if they are going to continue to look to pay the EU GMP to come to Europe, or maybe both. I can see when Colombia establishes a domestic market, the funds are going to be better and they are going to be able to pay the EU GMP. We need to understand that America Latina we are agro region by decades, by years, right? We know the land and the soil, and there we have farmers. So has been a really long time to explain farmers how to move to the EU GMP. That is a really, really big challenge. I see that, and also big challenge is that we are confusing the patients and the consumers. And we want to treat consumers as patients and patients as consumers when the regulations get mixed, correct? That is what is happening on the side of Colombia, but other opportunities as Brazil are coming. What happens if Colombia just start complying with the Brazil certifications and there is other big market? Brazil is going to own, they are 203 million, 280, okay, million people, and they just launched, as I mentioned before, these new regulations for the medical market are completely, the patients are coming to the associations and they are growing and growing. So I see Colombia looking for markets also as Brazil. Uruguay also has opportunities with Brazil. And we will see that there are other regions in the world, example Japan, in a few years. They are moving forward for isolate, There are possibly other markets for us. So there are big opportunities in LATAM, definitely.
Mariana is very enthusiastic and bullish on her home region.
Como Latina, as Latina I need to be.
We're here in Germany, but today 50% of all German consumption comes from Canada. They are dominating this market, and others are trying to catch up. The CEOs of the largest Canadian cannabis companies, the LPs, they're intent on protecting their market, their share. Now, they have the capacity, they have the repeatable, predictable products, and they've got the regulatory framework for export. Should the emerging markets try to take on Canada, its leadership in Germany or Australia, head on, or will they find their own niche through tourism or leverage their differentiated genetics by exporting? So Michelle, Jamaica has a very long history with cannabis. Is Jamaica better served in positioning itself to bring the customers to Jamaica for tourism, or with your unique genetics, try to build an export market?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of both because what happened post-COVID, when like Jamaica decriminalized cannabis, we saw huge investment opportunities, particularly coming from like Canada, where the investment was to see how the opportunities of growing cannabis in a tropical sun and be able to use the Caribbean, Jamaica brand equity to sort of promote cannabis in Canada. But post-COVID, we saw a huge downturn in the investment capital coming in to Jamaica. And this also saw where, in terms of Canada, there were numerous companies that filed for bankruptcy. So that saw that dry up in terms of capital coming in. But what we see is that there are huge opportunities, particularly within the hospitality area, which like the Caribbean is very well known for like tourism. So we see the opportunities where we provide pre-approval for arriving passengers coming on cruise ships who would get certification and approval if they have pre-qualifying conditions in their jurisdictions, and they would be able to walk off the cruise ships and access cannabis immediately. So we see how we can facilitate that by providing cannabis-friendly environments, such as lounges for consumption, such as cannabis stores, such as culinary events, which would be able to provide that hospitality potential for the arriving consumer.
So TSA approved global entry for cannabis in Jamaica?
I would hope so, but not quite yet.
Okay. Ariane, you've got a long history, and you've seen this movie before in Holland back in the 1990s. What guidance can you give? When Amsterdam was a tourist destination for the coffee houses, and still is.
Yeah, it still is. I'm still proud of our capital. If you just think about the history of Amsterdam, we legalized abortion, euthanasia, gay marriage, and marijuana. So this is like the freedom city of the world. But there's some things to say about this. Look, I think, maybe I drop a bombshell, but I think, if Canada is allowed to import into Europe, why are we not allowed to import into Canada? That's the first thing I would say. I think there should be some kind of organization coming on. If you want to do free trade, that's fair, yeah, but if you import into our countries, then we should also be able to import in your countries. If not, I think the industry should do something about this, because it's not fair trade. But secondly, I think the power of other countries that are coming online, which is Colombia, where we are working, or it's South Africa, or maybe Uruguay, or Thailand. Look, these are emerging markets. We are young, but there's a lot of power behind there. And there's a lot of advantages that we have in South Africa, or in Colombia, or in Thailand, compared to, for example, Canada. Yeah, like our wages are, for one person in Canada, we have 10. So you can just imagine the amount of scale that is optional. Then if you look at the climate of, let's say, Canada and the climate of Portugal or Thailand or Colombia, our climates are also much more beneficial to the growth of cannabis. So there's a lot to say about that, but on the long run, I think it will be an equal race. Companies that have a great brand and great genetics will always survive. I always compare it to the wine industry. Well, you're from San Francisco, so you know Napa and Sonoma. The great wine houses will survive, and it will be the supermarket wine also, and everything in the middle will struggle. This is how it's going to go. This is already how it's going to go for a long time in Canada and in Australia, and even in Holland, where we have coffee shops since 1968, when the Melkweg and Paradiso were the first places in the world where we could sell marijuana. As a matter of fact, in 2001, the first medical grow license was granted to James Burton, my partner at that time, a Vietnam War veteran, and that was with SIM, Stichting of Institute of Medical Marijuana. That was the first granted marijuana license. And look, we are 25 years later and we are still talking, and now there's 50 countries online where you can get medical marijuana. So we are moving forward. It's going slow. Look at the recreational part. It's only a few countries. It's only Canada. It's only Uruguay. It's only Malta. And it's technically was Thailand, not anymore, kind of. But still, this is the situation. Emerging markets will be also very, very strong and competitive.
So you mentioned fair trade, and I want to swing back to Michelle. You've raised the issue of fair trade in the Caribbean, and how do you not just become a raw material supplier? How is Jamaica or the 14-member countries going to protect themselves and not just become a commodity supplier?
Yes, that's a very interesting one, because we see how the global movement, we see how the movement in terms of cannabis policy reform taking place globally. So it's important for regions to be able to position themselves in a unique preposition based on understanding their niche advantages. So in Jamaica and the Caribbean, we have a huge cultural history surrounding cannabis, reggae music, Rastafari. So using that brand leverage to market cannabis globally could have good opportunities for other regions. But we also see where the investment capital could definitely support more value-added preposition manufacturing to sort of be able to build commodities and brands that could have that marketing value based on the niche prepositions.
Right. Thank you. Last topic is EU GMP. It's an expensive proposition, and I want to understand how the emerging markets are approaching it. It's a big investment, resources, time, money, and building that capacity in-house is a huge undertaking. So Varavi, you are a JCP grower. We talked about this earlier. Is EU GMP validation worth it? And how are your peers, Ariane, you can speak up, approaching it? I think you've already mentioned you're on the final glide path to your EU GMP. So, Varavi, as a GSP grower, going to move to EU GMP?
I think EU GMP is not nice to have anymore. We need it. The challenge is very expensive, time-consuming to get the certified. That's why a lot of people use third-party EU GMP facilities in Europe. But for Thailand, we have a lot of farms, and we need to have our own EU GMP. I used to have a political position in the government before. So right now, I'm talking to the right department in the government to set up EU GMP national platform, so everyone can utilize the same one. So this is open for investor also. So if anyone would like to invest in EU GMP in Thailand with our government, and I haven't talked to him yet, but we can talk. This is going to be the big opportunities. As I mentioned before, let me steal some questions from our people. Just imagine if China opened for medical cannabis, what would happen? We are very close to them, and we are the first one who moved into medical cannabis in Asia. Thank you.
Quick follow-up to Mariana. You've mentioned that there are other opportunities, maybe within the Latin market, where EU GMP is not required. Is that a possibility?
Yes, there is a possibility, but also let's remember, the GMP, our manufacturer, is a process. It's not a law. It's a process that can be complied on site, or operators can find the way to move the process in order to just have a certification, right? Therefore, there are a lot of challenges, not just coming from the side of the certificators, but also from the operators. What is happening, example, in Colombia? In Colombia, you need to obtain, of course, the first local certification, and then if you want to come to Europe, you need to do it again. And they are not going to take valid your Colombian registration, even the requirements are exactly the same, and even is granted by a federal authority, right? Therefore, the companies are starting to demand double GMP, or your GMP and the EU GMP, and then the regions change those requirements, right? Germany is different, each country is different. Therefore, the opportunities that I see regarding it are the other emerging markets, as I already say. Japan, Australia, there are also compliance with Australia, the emerging markets that are going to come in America Latina. And the last thing I would need to say regarding GMP is everything is going to be regarding the final product. It is not the same a medical flower final product than a recreational flower final product. And GMP is going to be regarding the final product, and this is going to be pharma and medical. So there are other opportunities in hemp, in industrial, in other industries where this certification is not required.
Thanks. Want to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions. We've got a wealth of knowledge here on the stage.
Just a second, I'm running. And I won't fail this time.
Anyone? There we go.
Hello, I think my question is mainly for Lucas, but obviously the rest of the panel can feel free if they have any thoughts on this. I'm an economist doing a study on the economic potential of regulatory change in the Austrian market, which as of now is one of the more conservatives in Europe. We don't even have recipes for medical cannabis by doctors. And since I'm assuming Lucas as a neighboring country and also knowing of the buying power of the Austrian market, I was just asking what you see the potential there if there is regulatory change, say, within the next 5 years, and if you have thought about this at all. Yeah.
What regulatory change? If there is like a regulated market in the Czech Republic, or?
No. Austria. So I'm an economist doing a study on the economic potentials of regulatory change in the Austrian market into the direction of the Czech Republic or Germany. And since it's the same size, a bit bigger and has more buying power, I was just asking if you have any perspectives on this, maybe. Or if you've thought about it as a neighboring market, advocating for like a medical cannabis law.
Is the question centered around, is what's going on in Czechia a proxy for how the Austrian market may evolve?
More also if he has like insight on the lobbying efforts for the Austrian market as well. Maybe because he's so involved in the advocacy in Czechia. I don't know. Also, we have a lot of market relationships there. Sorry if I'm making it difficult. You can also come to me later if you don't.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe take it sidebar. Anybody else? Time for one more question? With that, 1 second. We're right on time. Thank you, everyone.
That was great. It's good to see everybody.